Welcome to 1623 Studios, Cape Ann ARTWaves. I'm Christine Fisher, your host of today's program, coming to you from Gloucester, Massachusetts. First up, I want to give a big shout out to our 2021 sponsors. They are Prince Insurance Agency, MK Fisher Visual Artists, the McDermott McCarthy team at Gibson Sotheby International Realty, Common Crow, and our partner C Arts in 1623 Studios. A very special thanks to Steve Lacey and Pat Virga for their contribution of the music. Also to Anders Johnson, who is our videographer and makes this recording look seamless. Jacqueline Ganem DeFalco, my co-producer and partner in crime, will be your host next time. Our program focuses on uniquely talented artists and their work. And today I am looking forward to having a conversation with a very talented painter who has influenced so many here on Cape Ann, including my late mother, who loved taking her classes. Marilyn Swift has been making her mark on Cape Ann for years and is highly regarded for her expertise in plein air painting, as well as having been a memorable mentor and teacher. Her signature atmospheric watercolors have won many, many awards, too many to count really, since 1967. And her work is enjoyed in as many, if not more, private collections. Marilyn paints in oil and acrylic, but always seems to find her way back to watercolors. Marilyn has been living in Gloucester since 1974 and was juried in as a member of the prestigious Copley Society in 1968. And that sets the tone for all of the success that she's had that has followed. She has a tremendous reverence for the beauty of Cape Ann and the legacy of influential artists who have lived and worked here. Always curious to learn and expand as an artist, she has just recently published a book with 7 other international artists, and I love this title. It's titled Lockdown Art, Painting in a Pandemic. It was compiled by Will Harvey, one of her fellow artists, and she's going to tell us more about it. I'm showing an image right now of one of her floral paintings, which is just stunning, and it happens to be on the cover of this book. So not bad for someone who is shied away from watercolor. Welcome, Marilyn. Yes, let's get started. Talk to us a little bit about how you got here.
How I got here. Okay. Well, it's been a lifelong journey. I have always been interested in art. I did not grow up in an art background, but I did go, when I went to college, I became an art major. And I was in a liberal arts college in Westchester County, just a short train ride from New York City. So that was part of my art education too, going into all those museums and shows. The art program that I majored in, that I took in college, really was very diverse. It just hit every medium of art, not just painting, just everything. And I found that when we got to painting, after many courses in drawing and all that, it was watercolor was really baffling to me. It was just hard to, just difficult for me to do. So I was determined I was going to learn how to paint in watercolor. And one of the suggestions of our instructor was that there was a young woman who was going to be demonstrating in New York City at one of the art shows on that weekend, and I went in to see her on Saturday. It was the first demonstration I had ever seen of anybody painting, and it happened to be Betty Lou Schlem, who did a fantastic job of being up there in front of a room full of people and just painting and describing. And little did I know that in a few years later, I would be connected with her.
That is amazing. Betty Lou is iconic, as you know, and I'd like to talk just a little bit further about how you specifically came to Cape Ann. You had a very influential mentor at the Boston Museum School, Museum of Fine Arts. Do you want to talk about that briefly?
Yes. While I taught school, I taught art classes at the Norwood Public School System when I first got out of college. And while I was living in Norwood, I was going into Boston in the evenings once a week to take a watercolor class. And my instructor was Joseph Santoro, who lived in the Boston area, but he had a summer place in Rockport. And he suggested to the class one week that it was going to be a nice weekend. If anybody would like to meet him on Cape Ann, we met at a particular place. We went together to the Headlands in Rockport, which is a fantastic view overlooking all of Rockport Harbor, all that activity of the boats and everything. And I just fell in love with Rockport. Mm-hmm. He suggested to me, since I was a school teacher, that since I had the summer off, I could spend a month in Rockport painting. And I with his help, I found a place to stay and spent the month there painting daily. Had a couple of my college friends join me. It was a fantastic experience. And sometimes Joe would have me go out with him and paint. And I met some of the well-known artists doing that. It was, he was really quite influential. And Joe actually introduced me to the Copley Society in Boston. He suggested that I apply for membership there. I didn't even know what it was. It's only the oldest Copley Society. It's only the only art organization. But anyhow, I did get accepted as a member, and yes, that was my first professional.
And the rest is history. There's no turning back and no looking back. One of your dearest mentors is Don Stone. And I think he represents a wonderful segue. I'd like to show an image of Don Stone actually teaching, doing a demo and teaching, I believe, his last class. And you certainly were a very close friend. You painted together for years. He introduced you to Monhegan Island. You certainly have other mentors as well that I just want to mention. Then I'm going to turn it over to you. Of course, Betty Lou Schlem, who you mentioned, who did the first demo in Manhattan, Paul Strisick, Tom Nicholas, and of course, Charles Mavalli. So Marilyn, why don't you just elaborate a little bit about your relationship with Don and some of these other artists?
Okay, well, Don, I had seen work of these artists in shows in New York City, and I didn't know where they lived, but I happened to really be attracted to the subjects they painted and the way they painted. And I was really amazed when I came to Cape Ann to find that so many of them lived here. And so I walked into Don's studio in Rockport when he was living here, and signed up for a watercolor class. Took that class, went back to him that summer as often as I could, and he took a class of his on Monhegan Island. So he was the first person who brought me to Monhegan. That was quite a treat. And I went back to Monhegan for over 30 years of connecting with him because he would summer on Monhegan.
Certainly, and we have a beautiful image that I'd like to show.
This is the green surf.
Yes.
And yes, I was painting down on Lobster Cove by myself one morning, and I was painting the pathway to the cove. And then as I was packing up, I really looked down at the water that I had been hearing. And I mean, you can't escape the water. Monhegan is a small island, and it's absolutely gorgeous. And so I did a quick painting of that, trying to capture the movement and the energy of the surf. Sometimes the surf is, the surf even around Cape Ann is fantastic. So surf is and rocks are certainly repeating subjects in my.
Yes, they are. They're repeating, and yet they're always different and always very vibrant, full of texture and color. We have another image here that I want to acknowledge that's fabulous, called Sailing Lessons. Kindly talk to us about that one.
Okay. Well, this is over in Rockport. I would often bring my classes to paint here. This is on Atlantic Avenue, looking over at the Sandy Bay Yacht Club. And obviously, you see that little red building is motif number one in the distance. But what I really loved about it is that area is in the mornings. The sailing classes for the young children would be getting ready to go on the water. So they'd be putting the sails up, or they'd be coming in, taking down the sails. And I wanted to capture the energy of that, because to me that just was KPM.
Well, you've done so beautifully. I think that's quintessential Cape Ann. I really do. Do you want to make any comments about Paul Strizek and Tom Nicholas or Charlie Mavalli before we move on?
Well, sure. Well, Tom Nicholas, I used to go into his gallery. It used to be right below the Rockford Art Association. Now it's further down the street. And we would talk art, and then I asked him if he was teaching, and he told me that he was teaching in California. So I went out to for a couple of years. I went to his California workshop at Silomar, and then Paul Strizek had a gallery also right next door to Tom's and to the Art Association, and Paul would always be very encouraging. I'd go in and study his paintings too, and we'd talk about the work. And he just had very generous. These people were all very generous with their thoughts about art and answering all my crazy questions. And Charlie Mavalli, we used to talk endlessly. We talk about art. We talk about the local art, we talk about national art, we talk about usually something that he had discovered that I had no clue about. And it just was years of wonderful, wonderful conversations.
Yes.
I mean, it was nothing to do a 3-hour breakfast with him and just listen to him the whole time.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Charlie was so charismatic, and honestly, he was so curious. He was far more interested in you than he was in talking about himself.
It's true. You always felt like you were being interviewed.
Yes, an immense talent. I mean, all of these artists that you've mentioned are immense talents. I'd like to shift a little bit and talk about how you might talk about your work in terms of the emotional realism. Kindly expand on that. I thought that was a beautiful way to sum up your work.
Well, the thing is I don't just paint stuff. I don't paint things. I look for something to paint that is exciting to me, that grabs me in some way. And I try to get that energy into the painting, whether it's the absolute stillness of a fall marsh, or whether it's the wildness of the surf, or whether it's a farmer's market. I have been known to paint people moving around at these markets, and or people at the beach. It depends on where I am at a particular day, what I search for painting outside. And my inspiration comes from the outdoors.
Yes.
I mean, it comes from reality. It comes from reality, but it's not a photograph. It's a depiction that hopefully has feeling. And I still love it when I had the gallery in Rockport and people would come in and they'd say, "Oh, I can smell these flowers, that you painted." And, it just felt good. That feeling came through.
Yes, exactly. I loved your husband's feedback. Could you share that with us? I thought he summed it up, very succinctly, and I loved the descriptors that he used.
Well, he did say to me that I said, what is my process? He said, "You don't have a process. You have an approach to painting, and your approach." And I said, "Well, what's my approach?" And he said, It's very positive. It's very upbeat,
Mhm.
and I do tend to lock onto the beauty of an area that I'm in, and I do find something positive in it. It's a painting of the North End. I painted this for the a fresh paint event at the Cobbler Society. Every spring they do a fresh paint. It used to be that you had to check in and then go off and do your painting, frame it from the trunk of your car, or bring your stuff into the Cobbler and frame it up, hang it on it would be hung on the wall, and then there'd be a big gala sale that evening, and most of the work would sell. So it was a good money maker for them, and it was wonderful for the artists because we used to, some of us who didn't see each other very often would get together there, and
Oh, yeah.
it would be fabulous. It was just a fabulous thing. But doing these plein air things, these time limited things, really helped me become a little more facile with capturing something on site and also demonstrating it, because when you demonstrate, you maybe demonstrate for a half hour or 45 minutes, trying to just get something that you're trying to teach that day, some direction to go in, and then spend the rest of the time helping your class. And but I demonstrated for classes. I demonstrated for a lot of art organizations, all over the place.
Well, yes, you've been incredibly active. I'd like for you to talk briefly to Halibut Point. That's our next.
Okay. Well, Halibut Point Quarry is a place I go to often. I probably return at least at some point every year to paint there. I used to bring my classes there too. People loved it. It's so beautiful, it's so peaceful, and these quarry rocks are just so. They just speak to me in some way. No matter what angle of the quarry I end up doing. Sometimes I'll do the whole thing. Sometimes I just do a tiny little segment of it. But
it's a very special part of our history. Yeah, very special part. I'd like to make a segue here and talk about how you have used the last 15 or so months. We've gone through an extraordinary time with the pandemic, and you have really kept focused. You've kept learning. You have created a wonderful way of staying connected to other artists. Talk to us about the virtual group that you formed and also your book.
Okay. It's our book. I'm just a participant. Anyhow, one of the artists in that group, the ringmaster, is Will Harvey, who ended up taking charge of editing and putting together this book. But it was a group of artists that they were painting online, and the idea was that we were all isolated, and they would paint in isolation and socialize digitally. And it was sort of like an online show and tell, because every week there ended up being 8 of us. I was the only American, but I knew 3 of the British people, painters, and in turn, somebody would put out a subject for the week, whether it was skies or rocks or distance, or it wasn't necessarily a thing. It could be like a feeling. And self-portrait was one of them. That was interesting. And so there were a lot of different
themes, it sounds like.
Themes. And so by it would be put out on a Friday, and by the next Friday you had to have something online. It wasn't like everybody sent in on Friday. If somebody did their painting on Monday, they usually put it online, and we'd all see that, and we'd all comment online about it. And it was a great way to connect with people, to meet some new artists, to just to read their comments and read their encouragement. It was very encouraging to be with them, and it really helped get me through a time where I had sort of not been painting, and it just seemed like I had a studio full of stuff. What did it matter? Nobody's going to see it. Nobody, all the shows are digital. It really was very helpful. So
I bet. Well, kudos to you for being so constructive, I think, with channeling, your energy during this time. I'd like to show a image, which is actually the cover of the book, that includes your beautiful piece in the top left and your 7 other colleagues, other artists, their work, and Will's work in the bottom right. I think it gives one a feeling of just how diverse your themes were, right?
Right. The theme for mine was garden. Somebody had, there was actually one other woman in the group, and her theme was garden for that. And and one of the other people, their theme was windy, and that was Will's take on windy.
Bottom right. I like that.
A lot of his stuff is tongue in cheek. It's beautiful.
Yes. Real caricature work, very caricature oriented. Let's talk a little bit as we wrap up here, Marilyn. Let's talk about your approach to painting. And I loved your comment that you made to me that when you said it's very important for one to understand their focus, what it is they want to get out of the painting before they start to paint. Walk us through.
Yeah, well, so I'm thinking, okay, it's really a great day today. It's sunny. There's going to be a lot of contrast. There's going to be stuff. Okay, where am I going to go? Well, maybe I'm going to go to the waterfront. And there's always something on the waterfront. And since we're surrounded by water, there's a lot of waterfront to look at. So I might think, okay, well, I saw something last week at Rocky Neck, so I'm going to go there. And I go there and nothing really strikes me. So then I go over maybe to Pigeon Cove and I see something happening on the waterfront there. Either the small boats or the, whatever's going on, some activity there. If I find myself walking around with my sketchbook and sort of returning to the same little spot that really captures me, and usually it's because of the way the light is on it. I mean, I will intensify color. I will make color less than it is. I will change the color of things if it so moves me. But whatever is going to work to make a statement. If I were at the marshes in Essex, I like to go kind of at mid-tide. I don't like them just absolutely full, and I don't like them absolutely dead low. I like some pattern of water. So I keep a tide table with me in the car.
Smart move. I mean, the beauty of Cape Ann is such that you can go to the same place multiple times and capture it so differently. You had mentioned to me that you do a combination of thumbnail sketches and shapes before getting right into the painting. And I would like to show right now this wonderful painting that you did when you arrived at a location and you had forgotten a very important tool. Walk us through this.
All right. So these clouds, I had not been painting outdoors. This was the first of the challenges that I was with the English group, and it was chilly out. I found a place where I could watch the chilly out, a bit windy out, and I found a place where I could park and set up my paper on my steering wheel of the car and got my paints out. They were all set out in my palette. Poured my water, reached for my brushes. I didn't have brushes. Well, I thought, I'm here. The sky is lovely. I am going to make this work. How am I going to do this? And I thought, oh, I can use my paper towels. So I stuck the paper towels in the paint and mixed it on my palette or mixed it on the paper, and and I'm not unhappy with this at all.
Oh, you
I
created
think it came out really well.
Yeah, you created a beautiful piece. As we wrap up, and we need to be pretty quick here, talk just briefly about the Eastern Point Lighthouse.
Okay, Eastern Point Lighthouse. This is actually a lithograph on stone. I took a class at the Boston Museum School for a year in the evenings, just once a week, throughout the 2 semesters. And I, it's a printmaking process. It's a long process, and I do value drawing, and I do feel that shapes and darks and lights are what really make a painting. The values and the division of space. And so this is I actually bought a press and had it until I donated it to Montserrat College a couple of years ago.
Well, it's a very handsome piece for me. Really, bravo, well done, very handsome. Marilyn, as we sign off here, please share with us your URL. You have such a big group of followers, and I'm sure folks who want to learn more about your work.
Thank you. It's MarilynSwift.com.
Great, thank you. It has been such a pleasure to talk to you. You have made such a huge contribution here on Cape Ann and beyond, and you have influenced so many. So thank you very much for joining me.
Thank you, Christine.
I'm Christine Fisher, and we've been talking to Marilyn Swift, fabulous watercolor painter. I want to offer that this recording can be accessed on 1623 Studios social media platform. I want to thank our sponsors once again, and thank you all for watching. Until next time.